My name is Clara, and I was 12 years old. The summer my parents decided I was old. Enough to manage, that was the phrase my mom used, smiling too hard while she folded clothes into a suitcase on my bed. Old enough to manage. It sounded responsible, confident, almost flattering. But what it really meant was that my parents were leaving for a 2-week couples retreat in Arizona, and I was staying behind in our small Ohio house with a list taped to the fridge and a prepaid card they insisted would cover everything. No babysitter, no daily check-ins, no backup plan. Just me, a phone, and instructions written like reminders for an adult who already knew how life worked. I remember watching my dad lock the front door from the outside, the click of the deadbolt echoing louder than it should have. "Text us if anything serious happens," he said, already halfway to the car. My mom leaned in, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "This will be good for you." Independence builds character. Then the car pulled away, and the house went quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, replaying their words in my head. Independence, character, old enough. None of those words stopped the knot forming in my stomach. I told myself not to be dramatic. Lots of kids stayed home alone sometimes. This was just longer. I unpacked the fridge, checking what food we had, trying to ignore how empty the shelves looked once I really paid attention. Some leftovers, milk that expired in a few days, frozen dinners I didn't know how to cook properly. The prepaid card sat on the counter like a promise. I picked it up, turned it over in my hands, and felt a flicker of confidence. I could do this? I had to. That first night, I slept with the TV on, not because I wanted to watch anything, but because silence made the house feel too big, too aware of my smallness inside it. I didn't know then that this quiet would become my loudest enemy. The first few days passed in a strange blur of pretending and problem solving. I followed the list on the fridge like it was a rulebook for survival. Eat 3 meals. Lock the doors. Don't answer for strangers. Check homework portal daily. I microwaved frozen dinners and felt proud of myself for not burning anything. I sent my parents cheerful texts, adding smiley faces so they wouldn't worry. "All good here," I wrote, even when my stomach felt hollow by evening. On day 4, Tash's prepaid card declined for the first time. I was trying to order groceries online, carefully choosing the cheapest options, deleting snacks I liked in favor of food that would last. When the screen flashed payment error, my heart jumped. I tried again. Same message. I told myself it was a glitch. By day 5, it was clear it wasn't. I called the number on the back of the card, navigating robotic menus until a tired voice informed me the balance was almost gone. Almost gone. I hadn't even bought real groceries yet. Panic crept in quietly. I rationed what food I had left, cutting portions smaller, telling myself hunger was temporary. My parents still hadn't called. They posted photos, instead hiking trails, hotel pools, captions about finally relaxing. I started keeping notes in my school notebook, at first just to track meals and expenses. But the notes changed tone. Milk gone, card not working, haven't eaten dinner. Writing it down made it feel real in a way I couldn't ignore. One night, I woke up dizzy, my mouth dry, my stomach aching. I sat on the kitchen floor, hugging my knees, staring at the fridge like it might magically refill itself. I considered calling my parents, really calling this time, not texting, but I could already hear my mom's voice, "You're fine. Clara, you're capable." So I didn't. Instead, I recorded a short video on my phone, whispering so the house wouldn't hear me. "Day 6, I said. "I'm alone. I don't think the card works anymore." I didn't know who would ever see it. I just knew I needed proof that this wasn't in my head. By the end of the first week, the house felt less like home and more like a test I was failing. Hunger made everything harder. Thinking, sleeping, even standing up too fast. I stopped turning the TV on because I couldn't focus on it anyway. The quiet was constant now, pressing in from all sides. I checked my phone obsessively, hoping for a missed call, a message asking how I really was. Nothing. On day 8, Someone knocked on the door. I froze, heart pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. Through the peephole, I saw a woman holding a clipboard, wearing a jacket with the school district, LOGOMS, Reynolds, the school attendance officer. I had missed 2 virtual check-ins that week. I almost didn't answer. Pretending felt easier than explaining. But something inside me cracked. I opened the door. She looked surprised to see me alone. "Hi, Clara," she said gently. "Are your parents home?" I shook my head. The words spilled out faster than I could stop them. "They're out of state. I've been by myself. The card doesn't work. I'm fine. I was fine." Her expression changed, concern sharpening into focus. She stepped inside, noticing the empty counters, the way I swayed slightly when I stood still. She asked questions I hadn't let myself ask. How long? Enough food? Anyone checking in? When I showed her my notebook and the videos, she went quiet. "This isn't okay," she said finally. "This isn't independence. This is neglect." The word hit me hard. Neglect. It sounded official, dangerous. She made a call right there in my living room. I sat on the couch, hands shaking. Part of me terrified, part of me relieved beyond words. For the first time since my parents left, someone saw what was happening and didn't tell me to toughen up. When child services arrived, they didn't treat me like I was in trouble. They treated me like I mattered. That difference changed everything. That night, I stayed with our neighbor, Mrs. Carter, a retired nurse who lived 2 houses down. Her kitchen smelled like soup and bread, and I cried while eating because I didn't realize how hungry I'd been until I wasn't anymore. Over the next few days, adults came and went, caseworkers, school officials, people asking careful questions and writing everything down. My parents called, angry and confused, more worried about what this looked like than about me. When they came home early expecting explanations, they found reports instead. Evidence. My videos, my notes, my words, sitting across from them, while professionals explained consequences, felt surreal. My mom cried. My dad argued. I stayed quiet not because I had nothing to say, but because everything that mattered was already documented. I wasn't trying to punish them. I was trying to survive. Temporary placement turned into supervised visits. Counseling was ordered. Trust was no longer assumed. It had to be earned. People told me I was brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired. But I also felt something new, solid, like the ground under me wouldn't disappear just because someone else wanted a vacation. I learned that telling the truth doesn't make you disloyal. It makes you safe. And sometimes the most powerful thing a kid can do is stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Living with Mrs. Carter stopped feeling temporary faster than I expected. At first, I kept my bag packed, my notebook tucked under my pillow, like I might be sent back at any moment. But days passed, and no one rushed me. Mrs. Carter had routine breakfast at the table, not on the couch, dinner at 6, lights out by 10 unless homework ran late. At first, I thought rules meant control. But these rules felt different. They felt like someone cared whether I existed in the room. She asked how school was, not just if I finished assignments. She noticed when I didn't eat much and didn't comment, just quietly offered seconds later. The caseworker visited regularly, checking in, documenting everything. My parents' messages came through the agency, filtered and formal, full of apologies that felt more like panic than understanding. "We didn't know it was that bad," my mom wrote. That sentence made something twist inside me every time, because they could have known. They just didn't look. At school, teachers treated me gently, like I was fragile glass, which I hated. I wasn't broken. I was angry, aware, and awake in a way I hadn't been before. I started writing again, not just evidence this time, but thoughts. What it felt like to be chosen last. How hunger wasn't just physical, it made you doubt your worth. How silence from people who are supposed to love you can feel louder than yelling. Writing became my way of staying grounded, of making sure I didn't disappear into other people's versions of the story. When the supervised visits started, I felt sick before each one. They happened in a neutral office with bright lights and uncomfortable chairs. My parents sat across from me, trying to smile, trying to sound normal. My mom cried a lot. My dad talked about plans, about how things would be different. They brought snacks, like food could undo weeks of neglect. I listened, nodded, answered questions when required. But something had shifted between us. I no longer felt responsible for managing their emotions. When my mom said, "We trusted you," I answered calmly. Trust doesn't mean abandonment. The supervisor wrote that down. That moment scared me, not because I'd said something wrong, but because I realized how clear I was. I wasn't confused anymore. I understood that love without responsibility isn't love at all. After one visit, my dad asked quietly, "Do you hate us?" The question hung there, heavy and unfair. I shook my head. "No," I said, "but I don't feel safe pretending this didn't happen." He looked away. That was the first time I saw shame on his face instead of anger. It didn't fix anything that it mattered. The hearing came near the end of summer. By then, I had grown used to adults speaking in careful legal language around me. Risk assessment, protective placement, best interest of the child. Sitting in that courtroom felt unreal, like I was watching my life from outside my body. When I spoke, I didn't cry. I told the truth simply. About the card, the food, the silence. The judge listened. When the ruling came, continued supervision, mandatory counseling, delayed custody restoration, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. Nothing dramatic happened. No shouting, no handcuffs, just consequences. Real ones. Walking out of the courthouse, Mrs. Carter squeezed my hand and said, "You did the right thing." I nodded, but inside I knew it wasn't that simple. The right thing still hurt. It still meant accepting that my parents might never be who I needed them to be, but it also meant I no longer had to shrink myself to protect their image. That felt like freedom. Now, when I think about that summer, I don't just remember being left alone. I remember becoming visible. I learned how quickly adults call kids mature when they want permission to stop showing up. I learned that documentation can be armor, that telling the truth doesn't always save relationships, but it can save you. My parents are still working through their programs. We talk sometimes, carefully. Maybe one day we'll rebuild something honest. Maybe we won't, but I know this. I will never again confuse independence with neglect. I will never believe that being quiet makes me strong. Strength is speaking even when your voice shakes, especially then. So if you're reading this and wondering what you would do if you'd stay silent to keep the peace, or tell the truth and risk everything, I already know my answer. I chose the truth, and it chose me back.